let's start breaking this episode down to the ground. I mean, just the whole scene starting and building up is, I mean, it's crazy. It's clean. It's just super clean. And they added the stuff like the wall being destroyed and everything at the beginning, and I mean, it just looks super good. What we gonna see here? I mean, overall, in my opinion, it was one of the best episodes. Um, just to start a season, I guess. There's so many stories and stuff they got to tie in together, and it just they had to at least talk about a lot of stories and a lot of catch up things before they got into any of like the super crazy battles. So I was really impressed with that. So I mean, just starting off with this kid. I mean, it was essentially we're already gonna pause right now. I mean, essentially with this kid, he was reminiscing a lot of Arya and a lot of Bran from the first season, the very first season of Game of Thrones, the first episode, where they had the kid going to see who was essentially Bran at the time. He was climbing to go and see the Lannisters show up and King Robert show up to come in and talk to Ned and the Starks, which was super sweet. So I thought that was super nice. And like they said, in the after show, it was really a breakdown of a lot of parts from season one. And you get to see someone standing there, and it's Arya with her needle. The needle is there, of course. I mean, it was just great how they played this whole role. It was just amazing how they had such a reminisce from the first episode. I was very happy to see that, and it was something that they showed off in the trailer, and even the trailer really showed how great that it was. So I was really excited when they pulled that together. And we see all the Unsullied and everyone showing up. Uh, they're arriving, and it's pretty cool. I mean, just Daenerys and John and everyone showing up. I mean, it was a powerful moment because not only did it have a lot of reminiscing parts, but also it really showed how much has changed over the seasons. And I mean, it was just an exciting moment. Like you see Arya here, she sees John, and then she sees Daenerys, which was definitely a super awesome moment. The Hound, and I mean, just think about that too. Like they've had so much history, her and the Hound, and we're starting to see Gendry pull up as well. But the last time Arya saw the Hound, he was essentially dying, and they had she kind of just walked off on him, even though he was on the hit list. And she, I mean, technically, I mean, the Hound's still kind of technically on Arya's hit list now. Uh, I kind of feel like she's probably taking him off of that hit list by now. She doesn't have as much animosity towards him as she used to. But still not 100% confirmed if he's 100% off the hit list or not. So, which is definitely interesting. Maybe we might get Clegane Bowl in these 6 episodes. So maybe the Mountain and the the Hound will fight. Mountain might kill him, and then Arya eventually has to try to kill the Mountain. We'll see. And then this scene with the very first scene of the show of season 8, and it's actually a joke. It's a balls joke, which I kind of felt was interesting. 600 days of no Game of Thrones, and they start off the final season with a balls joke. And as you can see, Varys's face is he's making a face about it. He's salty, so which is pretty interesting. Mhm. And this is also another part too. The Northerners, they are in their ways, and they essentially they don't like what they haven't seen before or what they're not used to. So them seeing Grey Worm and one of the Daenerys's assistants, her name escapes me right now. I'm sorry, but um, them seeing them, and obviously them being from across the sea, and then I think also they're a little darker than the Westeroses that we normally see. So they make a play to that as well, which was kind of cool. And I mean, hey, John and Daenerys. I mean, John showing her another side of Westeros. Northerners are very stuck in their ways, and it's very interesting that they take they take kind of that feel towards Daenerys and all them. Now, this is the first time they've all seen dragons, and I mean, when you see a dragon, it's definitely life changing, and as John said, they're not used to outsiders, and then they see a dragon, which is really interesting. And hey, we have Sansa here. First time she's seeing the dragons, a main character. I kind of feel like Sansa, her take at seeing the dragons, she was definitely more shocked and awe, which I mean almost everyone is when they first see the dragons. I like how Arya, when they showed Arya's face, she was in awe for a second, and then she had like a little light smile to it. So that was pretty cool. I really like that. Hey, a very long time, right? Since season 1, since we've seen Bran and John looking at each other. So that's pretty awesome for these guys to finally meet after so long a time. Look at you. You're a man. And hey, Bran is he's the three-eyed raven now. From this scene where John's saying, "Hey, you're a man now. It's been so long since I seen you. Last time I saw you, you were just a kid." And Bran gives him that cold, um, out of body presence where he then says almost, obviously referring to he is now the three-eyed raven. He's a completely different entity. But at the same time, how he responds to John, it looks like he's happy to see John as well. Bran has, I'm pretty sure, been keeping track of everything John's been doing, of course. And I think just him, a three-eyed raven, a kind of a soulless body, uh, that's probably as much appreciation as you're going to get when you possibly see somebody that you like. So he's happy to see John, and he knows all the stuff that John went through. So that's really cool.
Where's Hyde?
Lurking somewhere.
Queen Daenerys, House Targaryen. My sister, Sansa Stark, the Lady of Winterfell.
Thank you for inviting us into your home, Lady Stark.
And hey, we have the traditional lineup. So we have very reminiscent to another play at season one, where we have um, Daenerys and John kind of arriving at the time to make a play towards when the Lannisters arrived and they saw all the Starks. So that was also another kind of callback, which is crazy now seeing all these kids essentially grown up now, when they were all kind of just kids watching in awe as Ned and Robert and Cersei and Jamie and all of them were talking. So that was another
It's
another
as
cool
beautiful
part.
as your brother claimed. As are you.
Winterfell is yours, Your Grace.
We don't have time for all this. The Night King has your dragon. He's one of them now. The wall has fallen. The dead march south.
And hey, we have a big part here. Bran is essentially like, hey, we really don't have time for this. This is Daenerys' first interaction with Bran as well. She has no idea what he can do, along with a lot of people. So when she hears this news about her dragon, it's kind of weird because it seems like Daenerys so far in this first episode, she really hasn't had any real big grievance on her dragon. The dragon died, and then she kind of just moved on pretty quick. Now that can just be a play at time, but we really haven't seen too much of her grieving for her dragon that the Night King killed. So Daenerys is now hearing news that the White Walkers have now turned the dragon, and it is now on their side. It's a little cold to Daenerys, and she's a little, it's someone that Daenerys really doesn't fear too many people now. She's been such a strong house, and she's built such an empire on her shoulders. But after finally seeing the Night King and seeing what he's capable of, she definitely has that cold feel of someone that she fears, which is, uh, you know, is the Night King.
As soon as we heard about the wall, I called all our banners to retreat to Winterfell. Lord Umber, when can we expect your people to arrive?
We need more horses and wagons, if it please, my lady. And my lords. And my queen. Sorry.
You'll have as many as we can spare. Hurry back to Last Hearth and bring your people here.
We need to send ravens to the Night's Watch as well. There's no sense in manning the castles anymore. We make our stand here. At once, Your Grace.
Your Grace.
It's another big part too.
But you're not, are you?
Oh, she calls out
You
John.
left Winterfell a king and came back.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, all these Northerners, they just, they just pledged themselves to John and pledged him King of the North, a title that John didn't want in any means, but was extremely honored because obviously Ned and, a lot of great men have been King of the North, including my boy Roose Bolton. They are very disappointed in John because they feel like they essentially betrayed him. They came back with someone from overseas that they don't trust, and they're still playing the Game of Thrones essentially, while John he's playing the war of the living and the dead. So there's that dilemma there. So
I'm not
sure what you are now. My lord? Nothing at all.
It's not important.
Not important. We named you king in the north.
You did, my lady. It was the honor of my life. I'll always be grateful for your faith. When I left Winterfell, I told you we need allies.
And I mean, this is the big thing with John, right? John's an honorable person, and John understanding that he puts it all on a pedestal, and he does what he needs to do. So it's a big thing for him, absolutely.
Or we will die. I brought those allies home to
Yeah,
fight
hello?
alongside us. I had a
Hey, I'm
choice.
doing a video right now. I'm doing a
Keep my
live
crown
stream.
or protect the North.
All right,
I
let me keep
chose
going.
the North.
And that's, I mean, that's John's thing. Sorry, guys, I had to grab that phone. But that's a big thing with John. That's essentially what he is.
If anyone survives the war to come, we'll have Jon Snow to thank. He risked his life to show us the threat is real. Thanks to his courage, we have brought with us the greatest army the world has ever seen. We have brought 2 full-grown dragons. And soon the Lannister army will ride north to join our cause. I know, our people haven't been friends in the past.
And I mean, just look at that too. I
We
mean,
must fight together.
let's pause this. Obviously, Tyrion, he's in a point of position where he knows that the fight with the living and the dead is a big deal. And he just informed all the Northerners, something that John hasn't even told them yet, that Cersei and the Lannisters are going to be, quote unquote, coming to try to help them in the war of the living and the dead. And they don't really believe that at all. So, and they shouldn't, because the Northerners have been tricked from the Lannisters so many times. So
The greatest army
it's
the world
crazy.
has ever seen. Well, I ensured our stores would last through winter. I didn't account for Dothraki unsullied and 2 full-grown dragons. What do dragons eat, anyway? Whatever they want.
And hey, we have Daenerys telling her role what do I mean, her and Sansa is just they're not meshing well right now. They're kind of like oil and water. They're not mixing very well. And obviously Sansa's like, hey, I have people I need to feed, and I can't feed all these armies. And she's like, well, what do dragons even eat anyway? And Daenerys says, well, whatever they want. She's just being sassy about it. So they definitely aren't clicking. So I'm curious to see how they're going to continue to play a part later in the show, which is sweet. And hey, we got Dragon Glass here, which is pretty interesting as well. All that Dragon Glass. Dragon Glass is the key.
I think the last of the wagons. Hello? My lady?
And hey, we have another part here with Tyrion finally seeing Sansa after essentially Joffrey's wedding. Sansa, the whole thing with Joffrey getting poisoned and killed, Sansa actually left, and then Tyrion was kind of stuck there for the blame of everything. And that's when the whole him getting executed and the Viper and Mountain, all that stuff. So that was, I mean, they haven't seen each other since then. So they have, I'm sure, a lot to talk about, which is, it's a ton of stuff. So it's just insane how all these characters who haven't seen each other, they're finally starting to mesh in, and there's just so much stuff to talk about. This is what this whole season, this whole episode, is essentially about. And it was just, I thought it was a great episode. I mean, they had to tie and bring all these tie-ins in order for it to make more sense later on with these next 5 episodes. And hey, Tyrion kicks it right there. Last time that we saw each other was at Joffrey's wedding when all that crazy stuff went down. And I mean, to be honest, out of all the husbands that Sansa's had, Tyrion was the best out of the 3. She had Joffrey, she had Ramsay, she had Tyrion, and Tyrion kind of won by default, I guess you can say, out of the other 3 dudes that she was with, which was funny. So.
Apologies for leaving.
Yes, it was a bit hard to explain when my wife fled moments after the king's murder.
What's going on, Daniel? Thanks for watching the stream. I appreciate it.
Many underestimated you. Most of them are dead now. I'm sure you weren't thrilled to hear the Lannister armies marching north. You have every right to be fearful of my sister. No one fears her more than I do, but I promise you'll be safe.
Cersei told you her army was coming north to fight for you.
She did.
And you believed her.
She has something to live for now. I believe she wants to survive.
I mean, hey, another play too is Tyrion and Sansa. Another thing that she brings up here in a second is she believes that Tyrion was at one point was the smartest man or the cleverest man that she ever knew, the most clever man. So I don't think she's playing Tyrion for a fool or just saying that, but it's hard to trust Cersei. I agree. Tyrion, he's a smart guy. He believes that after Cersei saw the White Walkers, that's something that's very convincing, even for Cersei. Sansa still hasn't seen the dead yet, so she is still in the she doesn't believe stuff role. Even Cersei, we kind of learned from Cersei that she's not really about this plan of fighting the White Walkers either. So Sansa's definitely evolved in her role. Learned a lot from Littlefinger, the best character in all of Game of Thrones. And you can't deny that. You can't deny that. A very important part too. I mean, Bran looking at Tyrion and the way he was looking at him. Bran's just creepy because it's like Bran is like Bran. It feels like he's like the viewer, like it's through Bran's perspective, like essentially this show, because he could be seeing all of this right now, everything that we're seeing. He's taking the perspective of the viewer because he can see whatever he wants to see, and Tyrion is the way he looks at Tyrion is it might just be he's just observing the situation, or it's he's looking into Tyrion. He's trying to find out if what Tyrion's true motives are. Are they bad? Are they good? You know, he doesn't really know. But it's very interesting how he was taking that look on Tyrion.
He used to be taller.
How did you sneak up on me?
How did you survive a knife through the heart?
I didn't.
And I mean, just a great line. Essentially, John's like, "Hey, how did you sneak up on me?" Arya is an assassin now. She's very quick with her feet. She's very silent, especially in the snow. That's like impressive that she was able to sneak up on John like that. And John and then she says to John, "How are you able to take a knife to the heart and live?" And he's like, "I wasn't, because I actually died. So I didn't survive at all. I just got brought back to life by the Lord of Light."
You still have it.
The needle And needle, hey, one of the biggest, I mean, kind of weapons, one of the first original weapons of Game of Thrones, a weapon that both John made actually for Arya, if I'm not mistaken. And then Ned ended up finding out that she had it, and he was like, "What are you doing with this?" But very amazing that they brought that homage back. Like I said, it's like we're living in the season 1, episode 1, 1 and 2 days with just all the reminiscing and stuff that they are bringing back. So it's really sweet.
Valyrian steel.
Jealous? Probably do.
I mean, it's just a great job that they did just overall. I mean, we're going to get to one of my favorite scenes here soon, but I mean, another thing too that I want to touch on is John hasn't really seen a lot that's been going on. So he says, "You think um, she's smarter than everyone," and he's referring to Sansa. And Arya says something very interesting. She says, "She's the smartest person I have ever met," and she's talking about Sansa, which is like it's crazy. Like, why? I mean, just thinking of all the people that Arya really came into fruition with, it's amazing that she picked Sansa out of everybody as the smartest person. Now, Sansa, she has been getting smarter over the time span of Game of Thrones, but really, like that's the smartest person. I mean, she was being manipulated for the longest when you really think about it. She had to make so many errors before she essentially learned her ways. And I mean, it's crazy. Without the help of Littlefinger, the one who kind of really started teaching her how to be more cunning and how to play the game, it's just it's. I mean, Sansa at the same time. I mean, I know she didn't really run into apparently a lot of smart people. So, yeah, that one I kind of thought was a little weird. I kind of disagreed with that one, but it was definitely pretty interesting. Here we have Euron too. The Euron and the Golden Company is now arriving. So it's nothing really too crazy happened at this part. It's just Euron doing Euron things. Now we have the scene with Cersei and Euron, and essentially the man from the Golden Company. He shows up, and the Golden Company, if you guys don't know, are the highest paid in the most famous sell swords in all of Westeros, in the world of Game of Thrones. The reason why Cersei was able to get the Golden Company was because she was actually being backed by the Iron Bank. And if you guys didn't remember that, the Iron Bank, they came to Cersei and they essentially told her what Tywin told her years ago, a long time ago before he died. And he told Cersei that the Iron Bank's gonna always pays you always have to pay the Iron Bank, and they're always gonna come to make sure that they're getting their money. They're the IRS of Game of Thrones. And Cersei, when she has this meeting with the Iron Bank, she does make some very strong points. One, Daenerys is the breaker of chains, and she is trying to abolish slavery. And Cersei understands that a lot of money that the Iron Company makes is on the slave trade. So she made that point to the Iron Bank, and the Iron Bank, they've been losing a lot of money because of the breaker of chains, Daenerys. So the Iron Bank took that position to back Cersei, and now she was able to fund to have the Golden Company brought by Euron to help them out. And then in this scene also plays a nice little part too, because the guy who is the leader of the Golden Company, he shows up and he's like, "Yeah, we had some casualties. Some people ended up dying, and it wasn't just from the trip. It wasn't from them being sick or them being attacked. It was Euron and his men they had like a dice game, and Euron's like, Yamin cheated, and he was like, or did I cheat? And it just played a really funny role as Euron being a troll as he is, and the Golden Company lost some men from that, which is kind of surprising because the Golden Company, they're supposed to be the highest paid, biggest sellswords. And Euron was like, we just took them out like they were nothing. Even though Euron, they're like, the Ironborn, they're like bred to fight. They're really gritty. They're really tough. It's really interesting that they really didn't put up a fight. Those Golden Company sellswords. So how good are they really?
You're insolent. I've executed men for less.
They were less than men.
I love that line too. I love that line where Cersei's like, "You're insolent. I've killed men, with less," and then he's like, "Hey, they were lesser men." I mean, he's the real deal. He's done a lot. He's done a lot for you, So that was a cool line. And then we have the scene where Cersei pretty much invites Euron into her chambers, for her to do her part in everything that Euron's been doing for her. And Euron's pretty happy about it. And then I love this scene here too. So far, every single time the Euron has tried to step up on the in the throne room on the stairs, the Mountain would always kind of step up and kind of be like, know your place, you know what I mean? This time, Euron actually passes the Mountain, and I thought he was going to do something very slick to the Mountain, like maybe tap him on the shoulder or do a little smart remark, but Euron's really not trying to mess with the Mountain, so he kind of just walks past him. And then this scene we can't really show. This scene is the scene with Bronn. I'm glad I caught it early. We're gonna go ahead and skip all of that. But essentially that whole scene with Bronn was he was hanging out in like a brothel or in his chambers with a few women, scantily clad women, as they would say. And Bronn actually, while he's in there, Qyburn actually comes in the room and kind of interrupts him. And Qyburn gives him the news that Cersei actually wants him to go on kind of like his own little smuggle mission, and he wants him to go kill Tyrion and Jaime, or Tyrion or Jaime, either or 2-1, whatever. With Joffrey's crossbow, a lot of people didn't even realize this. The crossbow that Qyburn gave Bronn was the crossbow of Joffrey from his chambers, which was pretty cool. And then we have Cersei, after she was, her and Euron had that altercation, she definitely kind of feels disgusted on what she had to do in order for her to continue playing the game and hopefully win, on her side, because it seems like she doesn't really enjoy Euron's company at all, but she knows what she has to do for the good of the realm, as Lord Varys would say. And wow, she just does a great job just acting in that role, and she did a fantastic job there. Hey, and now we have the one of the biggest parts with Theon actually coming and saving the day. I mean, I'd never thought in a million years he'd be doing this. And look how he's just like a boss when the door opens. And look at him. Look at Theon. Look at Reek. Very impressive that he was able to not only infiltrate a Golden Company boat, one of Euron's boats, especially the boat that Yara was on. I'm sure that that boat would have probably been more heavily protected just because he would know someone would possibly try this. But he seems like someone who would definitely get more lackadaisical or kind of lose his guard a little bit, especially all that was going on right now. Uh, but props to Theon actually showing up, taking out pretty much everyone on that boat and saving Yara, which was very, very impressive. I mean, and it's a little funny part that Yara does. As soon as she kind of gets up, she knocks out Theon, or she headbutts him and he drops to the floor. Because Theon does still deserve a little bit of payback from how he just jumped ship when Euron and Yara were there on the boat and he had her captured, and Theon was like, "Nah, I'm out of here," and he just kind of dipped. So it is definitely pretty funny how she knocked him down and then she picked him back up. So that was a great part. She's just about to knock him down right now. But hey, I mean, just that's the life of the Greyjoys, and that's what they do. They're very tough. They're very prideful. They're a very gritty house, and they do things a different way. They're tough as nails. So like the salty spittoon. So here we go with Yara and Theon having this discussion. Essentially, what happened is Yara is saying she wants to go back to the Iron Island so they can take their home back and essentially have a home for Daenerys to go if Daenerys, if the White Walkers take out all of the Seven Kingdoms on that side. They really believe that the White Walkers can't go over water, which it's tricky, right? They can't go over water. It doesn't seem like they can just freeze the water and go over it. Otherwise, that's probably what they would have decided to do when it came to the wall, but they had to bust through the wall, right? With the dragon. But easily the Night King can just, now that he has a dragon, like it's like he can go wherever now. He could easily take his dragon over to another island and kill the people on the island with the dragon and then raise the roof, bring all those people back to the dead, and then he can infiltrate, other islands. So it's very possible that he could do that. I mean, absolutely. What's up, Mike? What's going on? And Daryl, what's going on, man? Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Did I already watch this, or is it? No, I've already watched it. This is probably my third time watching this overall, but yeah, I've already watched it. So, and essentially, hey, he wants to go back to Winterfell, right? So, going back to Winterfell is something that Theon, as a character, he wants to do. He is probably going to end up dying in Winterfell. It's the kind of like the old Roman story of the I forget the name, but the guy who betrayed his family, and then after going through so many struggles and tribulations, he actually goes back to honor his family and try to save his family. He ends up dying, which is pretty interesting. So I think Theon, I mean, he obviously confirms to Yara he's going to go back to Winterfell and try to help out in the big battle, and he's probably going to, end up dying there. Because it's gonna happen. So, Daryl says, I understood nothing because I don't watch the show, but watch this episode because I happen to be at a watching party. Cool. I would say this episode, Daryl, it's not an exciting episode for somebody who doesn't watch Game of Thrones or doesn't know the character progression and the stories. Like, this is essentially, it's an amazing episode, but it's essentially a big build-up episode. Like, there's a lot of stories that haven't been talked about. This show is very, it's very interesting with Game of Thrones because over all of these seasons, these characters have never interacted with each other. So this is, besides the end of last season to now, all of these characters are actually meeting each other for the first time. So that's why Game of Thrones is awesome, because there's so much knowledge that we have as the viewer, because we've seen everybody's stories at different times. But the crazy thing is now that they're all getting closer and they're all becoming, all these characters that have been so far from each other are finally meeting, they are starting to learn stuff, not only that we've known for a long time, but a lot of, I mean, a lot of lore and a lot of people have understood too. So, I mean, just with some of the scenes, like they've had some of the best scenes, like the scene with Jon, where he finds out that he's the true heir of the throne, where he finds out he's a Targaryen from Sam. Just how that scene was filmed, just the music. I mean, that was one of the best filmed. How like Ned was in the background while Sam was explaining it to Jon, and they showed Jon's expression. I mean, that scene was absolutely ridiculous. So, Daryl says, I did understand it. It was hella story heavy though, since everyone was saying how much stuff being said were big bombs, right? I mean, yeah, it was crazy. Like just some of the things they like, the whole Jon finding out who he really is. I didn't think they were going to do it in the first episode. I didn't think that Jon was going to find out until maybe a few more, even right before before the Battle of Winterfell, before they fight the dead. But it was a perfect scene. It was the big bomb of this whole episode. So, and then one of the more awesome guys here. This is sweet. Essentially, the three wise men. We have Tyrion, we have Davos, the Onion Knight, and we have Varys. So the main whisperer. So these guys, I mean, they know so much about the world of Westeros, and I mean, I love Davos's character just because he's such a humble and he's such an honest, and that's one of the reasons, the main reason why Stannis, before Stannis ended up dying, that's the main reason why he loved Davos too, because Davos was honest, he was trustworthy, and he was going to tell you how it was. So Davos, he mixes very well with Tyrion and Varys. Tyrion and Varys have been together multiple times throughout Game of Thrones, but Davos definitely it makes it even better, which is super sweet. So, and hey, Davos says he's making a proposition of, hey, Daenerys and Jon should be essentially the king and queen of all of Westeros, as they do some playing here. I mean, it's another great scene too, another great conversation scene. So it's super nice. So.
Our queen respects the wisdom of age. Of course she does. Respect is how the young keep us at a distance.
So what did you guys think of that episode? Did you throw some questions out? Let me know what you guys thought about that. How'd you like it, Daryl? Specifically from you, since you don't really watch Game of Thrones, like, did you think it was a good episode? Did you think like it was a big episode? Was it worth the hype?
She doesn't know you. It makes you feel any better. She didn't let me either when we were growing up.
She doesn't need to be my friend.
I mean, let's take a look at it here too, right? I mean, Daenerys, she is kind of being selfish in a lot of different ways. How when she first went into the kind of the big throne room for the Northerners, and Sansa's kind of explaining, I can't feed the Unsullied. I can't feed all these Dothraki. She's like, even let alone dragons. Like, what do dragons eat anyway? And Daenerys is kind of just like, she flicks her hair back. She's like, oh, whatever they want to eat. Like, she's just being a big jerk. Even later on when she tells Sam that she killed his father and his brother for not bending the knee. And Sam is just so devastated. Well, he wasn't really devastated about the dad part. We'll get to that in a little bit. But she was just like, kind of like, man, whatever about it. So Dany's definitely, she's cold in this episode, that's for sure. She's super cold. Daryl says, from what I saw, it seemed really dope. I saw the previous 2 episodes since they put them out as well. The framing of the shots and definitely that atmosphere, pretty amazing stuff. You can tell they love this series and want this final season to be the best. I mean, oh yeah, I mean, Daryl, they these guys that filmed Game of Thrones. Well, I'm sorry, not filmed Game of Thrones, but essentially direct set up the whole plan and the shot angles and the writers, because throughout the show they've had several different film directors. They've had seven different directors with multiple shots. But the guy's visions, which I believe was DB West, and I forget the other guy's name, but they actually, those two guys, it's two guys that primarily work on Game of Thrones for the writers, the producers, and then a lot of the film work. Those guys just made a deal with Disney. They're actually going to be doing their own Star Wars trilogy. I don't know when it's going to happen, but that's how great of a job they did on Game of Thrones. And the thing is, the transition from TV to films, like you think about it, you're like, it's a TV show, they're going to film. But we've seen a lot of success with TV directors and TV producers going to film. Let's look at one of the biggest right now, the Russo brothers. A lot of people don't know this, but the Russo brothers, they directed and they produced Arrested Development. They got popular off of a hit TV show, a hit comedy TV show by that matter. And they went on to do Civil War. They went on to do Marvel movies. They went on to do the biggest movies, which was Endgame and Infinity War. So there's this big transition. People are, these big movie companies, they're looking at these TV show producers. They're looking at these TV show directors, and they've been seeing a lot of success with these guys. So I mean, I think it's gonna be good for them. So as for this scene here, Daenerys she gets word from the Dothraki that the dragons have barely been eating, and she's kind of like, she's got to play the caring mother role, so she wants to go and see her dragons. Why are they sad though? I think they're really sad because one of the dragons died, obviously, so they're missing, one of the dragons. They're 33% down. And then two, I mean, it's essentially like they don't, what Dany says, she says they don't like being up north. They don't like the cold, apparently. It's really interesting too, because it's the dragon's weakness might be cold, and then the White Walker's weakness might, are fire. So it's very interesting how they kind of play a little role of that ice and fire bait and switch there. So, hey Justin, what's going on, my man? Thanks for jumping in the chat, man. What you been up to? And then, oh my goodness, we get a big part here. We get Jon getting on one of the dragons, and this is a huge part because one, Daenerys has all the trust in the world with him, and she really can't pick at it why, except she just loves him, and she loves how charismatic he is and how honest he is and how brave he is. But there's that underlying dynamic between them that Jon's a Targaryen, and they have a connection that she can't quite explain, and that Jon can't explain either, because Jon doesn't know he's a Targaryen yet. Daenerys doesn't know that he's a Targaryen. So in Targaryens in the past, in the lore of Game of Thrones, they've always have had this love connection. Game of Thrones is very incest, so the Lannisters are popular with that. A lot of houses, Craster's from Craster's Keep, Beyond the Wall, he was essentially just repopulating with his daughters. And then the Targaryens always slept with and had children with their family members because they wanted to always stay the purest of pure for Targaryen. They didn't ever want to populate with another, a being essentially. So they were very to themselves. Nice, nice. Getting ready to. Justin says getting ready to watch a show with Viv. Nice, nice. Hey Justin, do I still have the pops that you got me? Of course, man. I still got them. They're probably in my storage box up there. I don't have them out right now, but I definitely have them. They're fine somewhere. And I mean, whoa, like another thing here that was really interesting was that Jon was able to control the dragon. Like he was actually able at first, it was kind of just like he was holding on for dear life. He was just riding a roller coaster. And then he got more comfortable with the dragon and he actually steered the dragon to a place where they used to hunt and fish with Ned, and a place where Ned showed them to hunt and fish and stuff like that. So that's also another key thing. He's only been riding the dragon for like 10 seconds and he was already able to maneuver it and steer it. And you see Daenerys and she's making a face like, what the heck? Like it was crazy. So Daryl says, when Daenerys eventually finds out Jon's history, do you think it'll cause a drift in the relationship? I don't know. I think that's a very good question, Daryl. We don't know how Dany's going to take it, right? And we don't know how Jon's going to really take it too. Like I said, these Targaryens, they love to be with each other. So maybe it's just destined to be. Who knows? But it's odd. It's odd in our realm. It's odd in our world. In Game of Thrones, though, it's not really that odd, I guess you could say. So. And hey, there you go, Jon and Daenerys making out in front of the waterfall. This is a big part right here, a very big part. So while they're kind of messing around and they're kind of flirting with each other and they start to kiss, you see Drogon and Viserion. They're actually looking at Jon, and it's in my opinion, they're not looking at Jon like as a threat. They're not looking at Jon like you better not mess with our mom. They feel the presence of a Targaryen. When he was riding on Viserion's back, he felt the blood of the Targaryen. He knows that Jon is a Targaryen. The way that the dragon is looking at Jon, it's not like a threatening way, because we've seen the dragons do that before. We saw the dragons do that before when they looked at Tyrion. We saw the dragons do that before when other people tried to get too close to him. How this dragon's looking at Jon is he understands that he has the blood of a Targaryen, and it's a feeling that he hasn't felt because he's never been around another Targaryen besides Daenerys. So you can just tell by how the dragon looks. He's like, yo, this guy's the bee's knees. This guy's the real business. Mike says, what do you think of Bran? What do you think Bran is going to say to his old friend? Oh, we're the jump ahead. Hey, his old friend. I mean, here's the thing, Mike. Right? We know Bran isn't really Bran anymore, right? So he's the three-eyed raven now. I think that he's not really going to have any animosity towards Jaime at all, because the three-eyed raven, he kind of, in a sense, he's probably looked into Jaime's, everything that Jaime's been doing, right? I kind of feel like the three-eyed raven, there's a lot of speculation with this too, and a lot of theories on what all Bran can see. But I think Bran's kind of like he's kind of like a Google search bar, right? Like if he specifically looks for something, if he puts in, I want to see what Jon is doing, he can focus in on Jon and see all of that stuff, right? Or if he's like, I want to see what another character is doing, he can. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's just the all-seeing God and he can see everything. Why I don't think that's happening now personally. I think that it's possible for him to do it in the future. But remember, Bran is still, I don't think he's mastered being the three-eyed raven. I think he is still learning and still developing his skill, and he's still growing his skill. So for instance, he has no idea what what their fate's going to be. He just knows the Night King's coming and we have to prepare. Well, he told Daenerys at the beginning of the episode, he was like, hey, you guys all shut up. We don't have time for this. We got to get ready to fight the Night King, right? He wouldn't be wanting to fight the Night King and get ready if he already knew that they were going to die, or if he already knew the fate, or if there was another circumstance. So why I think Bran is still developing his skills. I mean, Bran is, I'm sorry, not Bran, the Three-Eyed Raven. He's completely gone. Bran is. The Three-Eyed Raven is this whole other entity. And I'm like I said, I'm curious what he's going to do with Jaime. I think it's going to be a lot nicer than bad, personally, though, if I had to say. And then Mike says that's Rhaegal, Viserion's dead. Yeah, I'm sorry, I get those two dragons always mixed up. Rhaegal and Viserion, I always get those two mixed up.
Which one of you?
And now another big part here. The Hound. The Hound kind of making fun of Gendry, being a jerk as the Hound usually always is. Gendry just made him this awesome dragon glass axe. And now we see Arya and the Hound, who haven't seen each other since Arya or the Hound actually fought Brienne of Tarth, and he lost that fight. And the Hound doesn't really lose too many fights. I believe, in my opinion, the Hound and both Brienne are top 5 living swordsmen in Game of Thrones. And that was one of the best fight scenes the show's ever had. And Brienne obviously beating the Hound, she puts herself above the Hound. But definitely interesting to see Arya and the Hound seeing each other again, which was really nice.
You left me to die.
What a perfect part. The Hound gets right to the point, of course, and he's like, hey, you left me to die. And then Arya's like, well, yeah, first I robbed you. So, and then we have this, the part where the Hound, he then gets up and he does this intense stare down with Arya. I really thought for a quick second, I thought, shit was about to go down. I thought they were going to have maybe a cool little standoff scene where they kind of had a little clash, but that's another interesting part. Let me know what you guys think too. But we don't know 100% if Arya has taken the Hound off her hit list. I believe she has, personally, just because the connection that they had, what the Hound did for Arya, and how they meshed together. They have this really weird kind of connection, this hate-or-love connection. But a lot of people still believe that Arya has the Hound on her hit list because she never said that he wasn't on her hit list anymore. And she still blames the Hound for, killing the butcher's boy, where she felt like he had an option and he didn't have to do it and he could have left, King's Landing a long time ago and all this stuff. So while she understands the Hound more, she still may have that underlying thing that, hey, you killed an honest boy, you know what I mean? Regardless if Joffrey or regardless of whoever told you that you could do it. So, this would be an awesome fight too. I personally think we need to see Clegane Bowl, right? We need to see the Hound versus the Mountain. And I would say, I honestly feel like Clegane Bowl is going to happen. The Mountain's going to kill the Hound because the Hound, he's primarily, he's a strength fighter too. He's about power, but the Mountain is like the most powerful being on Game of Thrones. So I think he's going to overpower the Hound. I think Arya has a great chance of killing the Mountain, and obviously the Mountain's on the hit list. I think it would do some awesome justice of the Mountain kills the Hound, and then Arya has to kill the Mountain. She redeems the Hound, reminisces to him from him killing the Mountain, or from the Mountain killing him, and then she obviously kills the Mountain and takes the Mountain off of her hit list because she still has the Mountain on her hit list. She still has Cersei on her hit list. Melisandre's actually on her hit list. A lot of people forget that Melisandre's on her hit list. because what she did to Gendry, and I think the Hound. I think those are the last 4 on the hit list, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, just another great scene here with Arya and the Hound having a standoff. Daryl says, also, how do you think they'll tie all these branches and relationships within a season while covering the war? Well, Daryl, they don't have too much time, right? If you haven't heard, Daryl, this season is only 6 episodes, and we already got through 1. So they really don't have that much time to really do what they really want to do, I believe. And it's going to be hard for them to do because we still have 2 big wars, right? We still have the war against the living and the dead, and then we still have the war with the Game of Thrones. Those 2 things are going to happen. Now, do they beat the dead early and then they play the Game of Thrones towards the other half, the end of the season? Or are they running from the dead while playing the Game of Thrones? They play the Game of Thrones and then they have to fight the dead at the end. So it's going to be one of those 2, but definitely they have to fight it has to be a war of the living and the dead, and they have to continue to play the Game of Thrones. So we're going to see that. We're going to have to see that. Mike says he's definitely not off the list. Once he's done doing something for the group, she's gonna gank him in his sleep. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, yeah, they have this menacing kind of thing, but yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting, absolutely.
Your brother wishes us good fortune, but he's staying in Deepwood Moat with his men.
Man, it is gonna be good. Like I said, only 5 episodes left. They've got a lot of stuff that they still need to cover, and they're gonna have at least a couple of big wars. I mean, you think about it, if 2 episodes are gonna be all about wars, if it happens, then they're gonna just have to explain everything else with 2 other episodes, you know what I mean? So, and then they have to try to wrap all of this up. I don't know how they're going to do it. Now, obviously, they did announce that their tail end of their shows are going to be a little bit longer, kind of like a short feature film length. So they will have a little bit more context to do a little bit more things. So we'll see here. And then this scene here, Jon and Sansa are kind of having a little bit of beef. Obviously, Sansa hasn't seen White Walkers. She hasn't seen the dead. She is still playing the Game of Thrones, where she's just worried about Cersei. She's just worried about the King of the North. She's just worried about the pieces. While Jon's like, I'm not worried about none of that. Like, you haven't seen the White Walkers. You haven't seen the Night King. He's like, once you do, it'll change because everybody who's seen the White King, except like Cersei and Euron, just because they're crazy, or a White Walker, and she's only seen a White Walker. So, or I'm sorry, not even a White Walker. She's only seen a white, if I'm not mistaken, and just a borderline just base zombie. And everybody who's seen the Night King, it's a different ball game when you see the Night King. It's a big part. Jon asked her, do you have any faith in me at all? And Sansa's like, I do. Like, you're still like my brother, like at the end of the day. So
for all of us.
Mike says, what's going to happen is Sansa is going to try to take over and say, Jon, come to your family, and he'll tell him all his real identity and stand with Daenerys. Yeah, he's in a tough pickle, right? Because Jon is Jon doesn't want all these titles. He didn't want the King of the North. Even Sam revealing that he's the true king, Jon doesn't want to be that's not what he wants. Like, to be honest, he doesn't want to be king of the 7 kingdoms. Like, that's just not his character. It would make more sense for him to have that allegiance to Daenerys, Mike, like you said. But he has to choose his family too. And John's definitely in a tough pickle. And then here we have Sam here, finally meeting Daenerys. A good little tie-in after he actually saved Jorah's life after Jorah had the grayscale. This is a big part because Sam, the actor John Bradley, he does a great job of interacting with Daenerys, and Sam's such a loving heart kind of guy, and you see his transition from when he starts bringing up his father and his brother. And he's like, hey, I committed treason. And she's like, what do you mean you committed treason? What crimes did you commit? And Sam's like, oh, I stole a couple of books from the Citadel, and I stole a sword that technically belongs to me. So she understands what kind of person Sam is. She knows he's a lighthearted guy, which is weird because I really thought she would feel more sad towards Sam after realizing that, after he saved Jorah's life, after she had that conversation with him to really realize he's such a good-hearted kid. And she's just like, yeah, I killed your pops. I killed your brother because they didn't bend the knee. And then Sam's like, can I leave? And she's like, yeah, sure, you can go. And she's just like, she's a savage. She's a savage. Oh, great part. I mean, let's look back too. I mean, Sam, obviously his father has always hated Sam, right? Sam was too fat. Sam was too lazy. Sam was never dedicated like his older brother, Dickon. So like he just, when he finds out his father dies, it's kind of like he's a little bit sad because Sam's a caring guy. He thinks about his mother, and his mother loves his father. He thinks about, his brother missing his father. So he still feels a little sad, but at the same time, he has that animosity. He's like, well, at least my brother is going to be the new king there. And then Daenerys tells him that I killed your brother, and his brother was, a great guy. His brother was an awesome man. His brother was an honorable man. His brother was a good person to Sam. He was nice to Sam. And then that's when you really see the difference in John Bradley's face emotions, how upset he gets, how sad he gets. He has that transition where it's kind of like a fake sad and then a real like legit sad. And John Bradley plays it perfectly just with the levels. Sam is super underrated, by the way. Sam has done so much for this show. It makes zero sense. First person to kill a White Walker. Save Ser Jorah's life. Freaking tells Jon about his true heritage. And then Sam's just so upset, it seemed like this was a moment where like Sam was like, I'm about to just wreak havoc. Like I'm just about to like do something crazy that I shouldn't do. And then there's like this crazy part where he's like going down these stairs right here, and like some asshole is like, some dude on a carriage is literally driving around Winterfell like 50 miles an hour. Like, why is he going so fast inside the castle of Winterfell? Like, there's all these people and bodies and stuff in Winterfell. And like, this guy just like drove past, like he was on the freeway or something like that. Like, that guy needs to slow down. Like, he's almost trying to kill somebody, man. Guy's a savage. Whoever was driving that carriage is a savage. And then while Sam runs out, he after hearing the news about his father and brother dying, he runs out. He sees Bran, and Bran, he's kind of like, hey, what are you doing out here to Bran? And Bran's like, I'm waiting for an old friend. And at this time, and this is a play to Mike, what you said, I personally thought he was just talking about Sam right here, because I thought Bran was, Bran's looking into the future. He knows where everybody's moving and stuff like that. So when he says, I'm waiting for an old friend, he was just saying he was waiting to talk to Sam because he knew that Sam was going to be coming out at this specific time. Later to find out, it's not Sam. It's another old friend of his. So Definitely a good part. It's crazy because Bran is essentially he's essentially watching he's like essentially watching the show as we are watching the show. Like he can see everything in our perspective from wherever, whenever, whatever he wants to focus on. So it's he's gaining all this knowledge without being there, and he just pops up at certain points, and people are just kind of freaked out by him because he's just popping up everywhere. So it's definitely great, great role with that too. Hey, and what a part right here. Now this is definitely my favorite scene in this episode, and honestly, probably one of my top favorite scenes in all of the throws. Not my favorite, obviously. My favorite scene will always be my favorite scene. But this scene where John is in the crypts, he's down there in the crypts. He's looking at Ned. You know, he's paying homage to the graveside of Ned, and you know he has a sigh. It shows that John sighs. So he's obviously thinking. He's like, Ned, what would you have done? Ned, how can I be as good as a man or as honorable as a man as you are? Ned, what kind of decisions? Like, how can I hold my standards up to your standards? Because he's the most honorable man he's ever met. You know, John says it himself. Um, and how Sam explains this to him while they have John's reaction while Ned's in the background was just phenomenal. Because remember, the back in season 1, when John went to the wall and Ned went to King's Landing, they were at that crossroads. And John said, will you tell me who my mother was? Ned looks at him very emotional and he says, when I see you again, I'll tell you, I promise. Ned was never able to keep that promise because Ned ended up dying in King's Landing. But it pays homage that while he's not only are they talking about what Ned did, but Ned in a sense still feels like he's there while Sam is relaying that message to John because they have him in the background. They have his presence there while Sam is speaking it. So just a great role. Absolutely, Daryl. Doctor Strange from Infinity War. That's exactly what he is. He is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm curious what kind of role Sam's going to start to play now because he seems like he's in a position where he doesn't really like Daenerys now after finding out that Daenerys killed his brother and killed his father. He's like she's a little bit ruthless, and he feels like John wouldn't have done that. So I'm curious how much more of a role Sam's going to kind of play when it comes to the whole Game of Thrones aspect. If he's going to take sides with Daenerys, or if he's going to try to figure out ways to convince John to not take Dany's side. And look how Sam tells him, "You've always been." I'm not talking about the King of the North. I'm talking about the King of the Seven Kingdoms. And then that music plays. The music plays, and it honestly it gives me chills. Explain it to him, Sam. Mike says, no, he's upset about it, but he'll get over it because it is war. And she was like respectable about it. He'll be mad for like 2 episodes. Well, yeah, in this season, 2 episodes is like that's like the whole show. Never been a bastard. True heir to the Iron Throne. And look how Ned's background. You guys can't really see it because I don't want the whole picture on here just for like copyright reasons. But like you just see Ned's shadow in the background while Sam is telling him that. My father was the most honorable man that I've ever met. You're saying he lied to me my whole life. That's the first question that John asked because that hit home for him. but what Sam explains to him is he had to keep that secret, otherwise they would have ended up killing you, John. Like that's why he had to keep that secret. That's how much of a boss Ned was. Ned put his honor aside for honor, essentially. It's kind of like Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious 8. The only thing that can stop him from saving his family is family. So Ned is so honorable that he tarnished his honor by going to Catelyn, coming back home to Catelyn with a child, and telling Catelyn Stark that I have a bastard. I slept with some random girl, and I now have a bastard son. And him being such a great honorable man, he tarnished his honor, and he lied to his wife, and he lied to his family, and he lied to everybody else to keep the original honor that he originally made when Lyanna was dying in her deathbed. So I mean, it was, Ned was galactic brain. He was big brain. He's way ahead of everybody. John's shocked about it. Obviously, it's big news for him. Does John really care though? Does John want to be king of the Seven Kingdoms? I don't think so. Daryl says this is all great stuff to learn. I got the first season on Blu-ray. Maybe I'll finally give this series a try for real, but gotta head off. Waking up for work at 3:30. Well, hey Daryl, I appreciate you, man, jumping on my stream and checking out, even though you don't watch Game of Thrones like that. I appreciate you jumping on, my dude. It was good to talk to you. Good to see you. And hey, man, you have a good one, dude. But keep it up, my man. Thank you, man. I hope to see you soon. MK11, maybe. I'm not sure if I'm gonna play MK. Maybe that's a discussion for another time. But we'll see. We'll see. I haven't really played too much of anything lately, though. Have a good one, though, dude. Good seeing you. And then this scene here, with Talbane and Beric Dondarrion, we do get a little confirmed, right? We find out that they survived the wall, and it was confirmed that they did survive because, one, they didn't die on camera, and they're pretty significant characters. But it's amazing how fast they were able to get off the wall after the Night King. Because remember, they were on top of the wall when the Night King came by and started using the dragon to destroy the wall. So it was amazing that they were able to get off the wall and get far enough from the wall to actually survive that. And then here we go. This is one of the best scenes of this episode, of course. The part where they run into the crows, and they're like, "Yeah, watch out! He has blue eyes," and he's like, "I've always had blue eyes," and he looks at him, like he opens up his eye a little bit, and he's like, "See, I got blue eyes." So it's just another goofy scene. That was still played well by those guys. So. Put the fire sword on him. I've always had blue eyes. And he like leans in a little bit. He's like, see? Yeah, and this is just another play. A little bit after the scene, they're going to pull it up here. But the Night King has obviously ransacked this whole area. And they have this this beautiful mural on the wall of the kid and his whole, there's arms, and it makes the swirl shrine from the original, like Children of the Forest, from the original White Walker being created. And they've done this in the past too. They've They've done this in the past with the horses when they were north of the wall. With the remember the horse's head that were in the spiral. Mance Raider, remember Mance Raider? He made a little joke of it. He was like, "All the dead are so artistic when they're trying to send messages. They're always so crafty and artistic." So Mance Raider talked about this and their art style a long time ago, but it's that traditional spiral. And then Beric Dondarrion's awesome magic fire sword from the Lord of Light, cast the flames around the whole spiral, makes it a really nice little scene there. So yeah, I'm curious what their roles is. I wonder if do you think they're going to die in the war from the living and the dead, the war at Winterfell? Do you think they're going to survive? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess we will see. And then we have, of course, Jaime arriving to Winterfell after his long journey of leaving Cersei. It's very interesting, though. Cersei has now sent Bronn, gave Bronn's Joffrey's crossbow to go and try to kill Jaime or Tyrion. If she really wanted him dead, why didn't she just kill him when he was there last season and the mountain was in his way, remember? And Cersei just let him walk out. So it's very interesting that now she just let Jaime walk out. Maybe she didn't believe he was going to leave. And now she just decided, oh, Bronn, you should just go and kill him with the crossbow. And then look at Jaime's face. He cannot believe it. He has the oh shit face of all faces when he sees Bran. And the face. It's such a great part too. I mean, just this whole show being a callback to episode 1 of season 1, where they started with the kid going up to find the viewpoint of the essential king and queen coming into Winterfell. Back then, it was the Lannisters and King Robert, and now it was Daenerys and Jon. How they had a lot of callbacks to the scenes where they were standing in a line together, all the Starks, and now all the kids are older now. And definitely, of course, at the end of the first episode of Game of Thrones season 1 was obviously Jaime pushing Bran out of the window. And now the first episode of the final season, actually ends with those two characters as well, with Jaime and with Bran. So a lot of big callbacks to episode 1 of Game of Thrones. They did a really good job there. Mike says, and you notice Dolorous, Ed, and the Lord Commander cloak now, right? And you notice Dolorous. Oh yeah, Ed has the Lord Commander. Yeah. Because John gave Ed the Lord Commander when he left, because John was like, yeah, I don't want to do this no more. He was like, I'm out. He's like, you lead these people, you care essentially more about the men than not care about them more, but he's like, you're the one to lead them. Back when John first came back, and before he left. So John's been breaking a lot of oaths, man. How's John so honorable and he left the Night's Watch? He broke that oath. He broke the oath when he was in the Night's Watch and he got with what's her name, the redhead girl. I don't even remember her name. The girl he's actually with in real life now is his wife. He became king of the North, and then he just dipped on his title, and he's like, "No, I don't want to be king of the North no more." So how's John the most honorable guy in Game of Thrones? But he's broken more oaths than Jaime. Everybody gives Jaime crap for being an oath breaker, but John's broken more oaths than Jaime has ever broken. Jamie's only broken one big oath, and John's broken over 3 already. So it's funny. I guess John just gets more credit. He just gets more credit because he's cooler. But yeah, I mean, hey, there you guys have it. That was a little breakdown and a little review of episode 1, season 1. We're already an hour and a half in, so I think we're gonna end it here. I say thanks for everybody who kind of stopped in and participated in the chat and joined me. And we're gonna keep shelling these out. We only got 5 more, so thanks for watching the video. If you guys are watching this video afterwards on my posted channel, hey, you got to the end, please, subscribe to the channel and, support your boy out. I make these reaction videos every day, videos, reviews. It's a passion project of mine. I've always loved film. I love TV, certain TV shows and all kinds of stuff. So if you guys want to see more content, if you did like my little breakdown and review, please, hit the sub button and hit the bell button for upcoming content. Okay. And I will be doing every single episode of Game of Thrones as a reaction, or not necessarily a reaction, I'm sorry, but like a review / breakdown. So I'll catch you guys later. You guys have a good rest of your night and take it easy. Have a good one. Take care. Doom, 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 doom.